Okay, so just you described 2026 a year of consequences. It seems to me, I agree completely, consequences is the right word, and it seems that all the consequences are pretty much going to be negative in Southeast Asia, no matter what scenario plays out. So if there's a US-China deal, that could have negative consequences in terms of some reversal of China plus one. If there's no US-China deal, that could have consequences because the US, you're going to have to be forced to choose to some degree between the US and China, or you're going to have less space to negotiate between the US and China. So that's a negative consequence. You said you foresee more of a rising protectionism as opposed to a building back of the old system as a result of what happened in 2025 with the demolition of the global rules-based trading system. So that's a negative consequence. You have the negative consequences that you mentioned in terms of climate risk. We didn't even talk about AI. We'll do an hour on AI and the negative consequences that could come from AI on the downsides of productivity and inefficiency. So, what should you be doing, especially if you're here in Southeast Asia, getting ready for all the consequences that are going to potentially happen to you next year?
Well, it makes me fairly unpopular, but I have been telling people for more than a year, like the news is not great. I'm terribly sorry. I would love to come to you and say, what an amazing opportunity we have ahead. It's going to be all roses and rainbows. That is not where we're at. When you break a system that has governed the world for 80 years, there's consequences that are not pleasant. I can come up with some silver linings. I can talk about how, for example, if you're going to break the rules, there are a lot of things that have been stuck for a very long period of time that could get unstuck, right? So for example, we have no global digital rules. That's bizarre, right? The internet came into force in 1995, and here we are in 2025, and we still don't have global rules on digital. That's a problem. And so now, if you're going to break the vase, then we have an opportunity to actually make global rules that deal with digital, or regional rules that deal with digital, or whatever, right? So the point is, when you break something, there are some opportunities. But I think they're going to be a bit more few and far between than a lot of audiences like. Most people, of course, like the good news. They always like the optimistic, show me the opportunities. Clearly, people are going to make money. And in fact, even in 2025, trade flows are still up given the high levels of disruption. How long that continues, I can't say. I don't think we're not ending trade, just to be before everybody panics. We're not ending trade. We're not ending cooperation. But we are in a continuing unsettled situation in which it's not obvious, to me at least, how quickly we return to talking more about upside and less about downside. I think we're in a downside risk scenario for quite a while, certainly on the trade and economic front, maybe less on the financial front, depending on how you're invested and so forth. But I think this is a lot of disruption ahead in 2026.
Well, you're very popular with me. So
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important to be realistic about this, like to look at the data. What is the data showing us? Not what is our narrative, what is our vision, what is our ideology telling us, but what's the actual data showing us? And then be realistic about that and not sort of say, well, because I want things to be better, they are automatically better. I don't think that that's very helpful. So I think some clarity about where we are, where we're going to go, what are the interests that drive the various players in the system. How does it push them towards cooperation? Does it push them away from cooperation? Obviously, there's going to be mixed views along the way. That is super important to focus on now. And I would say, as with 2025, same thing in 2026, you can't just assume there's one scenario or maybe two scenarios at the outside. You need to be much more broad-minded about the potential ways in which all of these forces come together and create different scenarios that you have to think about and at least plan for, even if you don't execute all of them clearly. You need to be much more aware, and those scenarios have to be constantly updated. I mean, this is frustrating for firms, well, and frankly for all of us, because you don't want to have to rethink your assumptions every 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever. But this is a world in which you do have to rethink your assumptions on a regular and ongoing basis, because what you thought was the world you lived in is not the world that you still live in.